Good evening, Purple family. Welcome to another episode of Shades of Purple, a Prince podcast. On tonight's episode, we're going to be doing part 2 on my series on Parade. So part 1 was about the album itself. So part 2 is going to be about the Under the Cherry Moon movie and the end of the revolution. The Parade would be the last album that Prince and the Revolution would do together. And I'm going to talk about some of the circumstances that may have led or did lead to the end of the revolution. So let's get right into it. So Under the Cherry Moon is one of those movies, kind of like Purple Rain, where you can just watch it. At least for me, I can watch it over and over again. I liked Under the Cherry Moon. And I know there's a lot of people in the Prince Purple family that didn't like it, didn't care for it, thought it sucked or whatever. But I can see why people didn't like it, but I can also see why people really did like it. Kind of the same thing with Graffiti Bridge, but my opinion about Graffiti Bridge is a little different than my opinion about Under the Cherry Moon. I really do think that it was a much better movie than Graffiti Bridge, but I don't want to, go down that route. So let's just stay on Under the Cherry Moon. But I think overall it was a really, like an indie arts film. It was supposed to be like a throwback to, golden era Hollywood, when they would have the black and white, comedies and romantic comedies, rom-coms as they call them now. And I think that was kind of the vibe that Prince was going for. But unfortunately, it just didn't really work out, at least for critics and, a lot of people. But like I said, I enjoyed the movie. I thought that, his directing was really good. He had to take over directing. And I think for Prince, I don't want to say that it was done purposely, but knowing Prince, who's to say? He fell out with the director that they ended up going with, this lady named Mary Lambert. And with Purple Rain, because we all know how much of a control freak that Prince is when it comes to his intellectual property. He's one of those artists that he likes to be in total control over a project. And if he's not in total control, there's something of, he'll find a way to get control. He's just a control freak like that. And with Purple Rain, he didn't really have that level of control that he really wanted because, of course, he had Albert Magnoli directing and his managers at the time were producing. And he wanted to probably do all that, because Prince was one of those people that he was like, hey, I'm going to do everything. Yeah, that's just how he was. And I think with, he didn't like that he didn't have that level of control with Purple Rain. And so when he decided to do the next film project, I think Prince really already had it in mind that, if he had to take over directing, that was something that he was going to be willing to do. And as so happens, that's what ended up happening. So I'm taking this directly from Wikipedia about what happened with that. But anyway, I'm also going to give you, of course, some stats about the movie as well. So the movie actually came out on July 2nd, 1986. And I am going to talk about the MTV contest that they did because they actually ended up doing the premiere in this Sheridan, Wyoming, like pretty much in the middle of nowhere because of an MTV contest. And come to find out, Prince really didn't want to do it. But I think I'm assuming maybe his managers and maybe the MTV people kind of talked his management into it and saying, hey, this will be a good idea to kind of promote the movie, because they were probably thinking that it would be somebody from like a major city that would win. But I think they had to be like the 10,000th caller. And it ended up being this girl named Lisa Barber, who was from Sheridan, Wyoming. And the funny part about it is, of course, it's such a small town that they, of course, didn't have an airport. So he had to land like in the middle of this, like, I don't know, kind of like this like makeshift kind of airport or whatever. It was kind of like basically like a landing strip. And they've got a footage of it on YouTube. So all you have to do is like type in Prince Under the Cherry Moon premiere. And so they have the premiere at, I think, like at the not the Four Seasons, Holiday Inn, I think, because that was like the biggest hotel in the town. And Prince and the Revolution, of course, did perform at the premiere, and he took Lisa Barber, this white lady, as his date to the premiere. And he was able to, he sit and got her hair done for her and got a dress for her. And I mean, and you could tell that she was a little nervous, being around Prince. There's this one footage of him like hopping his little small ass into the car, like into the driver's seat after he picked her up. And I was just like, oh my God, why is he so tiny? I mean, it was hilarious, but it looked like, he had a good time. The MTV DJ or VJ, as they were called, I can't remember. I think her name was Martha. She was flirting with him, and so it was so check it out. It's a good time. But anyway, I'm on Wikipedia right now, just kind of scrolling, and I'm going to talk about, so the production. So it said Prince wanted the film to be a romantic comedy, just like I said, with a 1930s vibe, set in an exotic location like Miami Beach or Capri. The idea was then born to shoot the film in France. So I don't know who decided that. I'm thinking maybe between Prince and Steve Fargnoli, his manager. They probably decided that France would be a good place to shoot it. So in mid-June of 1985, Fargnoli, Prince, and Alan Lees all flew out to France to scout locations and meet with potential cast. After visiting the French Riviera, Prince decided he wanted to shoot the film there. Scenes used in the movie were filmed at Les Salons de la Rotonde in Bellevue-sur-Mer. So that is a very English way of saying it. I don't have a French flair on it. So Prince wanted, like I said, Jean-Baptiste Modino to direct, but like I said, he wasn't available. So they went with Mary Lambert. And so they started filming the movie on September the 14th, 1985. And so Mary Lambert says here that she was the director of some of Madonna's and Janet Jackson's most popular videos. But she had disagreements about the film's direction, so she left the production on November the 4th, my birthday, after just 16 days of filming. So I thought it was a couple of months, but no, Wikipedia said she was gone after like 2 weeks and 2 days. So yeah. So after that, Prince took over directing himself, and they listed her as a creative consultant in the film's credits. Prince was able to take over the production as it was being filmed in Europe, and thus did not fall afoul of the Directors Guild of America, who vetoes directors being fired in favor of lead performers taking over their duties. So had the film been directed or filmed in America, Prince would not have been able to be the director because he's not a member of the Actors Guild of America. The cast was also changed during pre-production. Prince originally had planned to have Susanna Melvoin, sister of Revolution member Wendy Melvoin, as well as Prince's girlfriend, of course, at the time, to play Mary Sharon, but it was clear she couldn't act. And Prince replaced her with Kristen Scott Thomas. And Kristen Scott Thomas, of course, would go on to do many other movies, but this was her very first movie that she did. The film, I'm trying to think what other film that Kristen Scott Thomas did, but I can't think of any. I would click on her name, but I'll just won't worry about it. But I know that I've seen her in numerous other movies, and I didn't know for the longest that this was her first movie. The film, once again, was conceived by Prince as being filmed in black and white, but Warner Brothers had concerns that this would reduce its commercial appeal, so a deal was struck where the film would be shot on color stock, but processed into black and white in post-production. So they actually changed it to black and white in post-production. So, like I said, with my last episode, they do have a color copy of this movie that they need to give us, okay? None of the color footage has emerged, with the exception of the music videos for Mountains, which is the same as the end credit sequence in the picture, but kept in its original colored format. See, I want to remember that when Under the Cherry Moon was on VHS, that the end was put in color, like when they did the video for Mountains. But on my Blu-ray that I have, it's still in black and white. So I don't know if I'm crazy, but I want to remember that when I had it on VHS, or when I first saw it, I don't think it wasn't my VHS copy. I can't remember if it was my dad or my uncle's copy or somebody's copy that I saw on VHS back in the 90s. but I want to say that had a color version of the end credits. So I could be tripping, but I don't think I am. But I don't know why on the Blu-ray that I have that it's in black and white. So I don't know. I guess that's a mystery. But moving on. So the movie itself, so the basic premise for those who don't know, which I can't imagine anybody, listening to a Prince podcast that hasn't seen Under the Cherry Moon, but just in case we do have some newbies out there. So the basic premise was that Prince was basically, him and Jerome Benton were gigolos living in France. Gigolos, meaning they were male prostitutes. And they kind of specialize in kind of the higher clientele, these women that had, all this, really rich women. Matter of fact, the very beginning of the movie with Prince on the, or Christopher Tracy as his character is named, was playing on the piano in this bar. And this stunning, and she was very stunning to me, really pretty older white lady in white. It was kind of like giving him the eyes, and Prince is giving, her eyes right back. So, she's this woman that has money. And of course, she ends up getting with Christopher Tracy that night. And in the morning, you see her, in the bed by herself, and he leaves like this little drawing saying, "Call me." And so basically it's set up to, like I said, they're living in Paris. I mean, not Paris, Nice, France. Nice, is that how you say it? Nice, France. And, they're gigolos, and they're behind, though, on their rent because Jerome Benton is actually kind of like messing with their landlord, this French lady. And she was the same lady that was in the interview that he did after they did Prince's first televised interview that he did with MTV was around the time that he was filming this movie, I believe. So the lady, she was one of the French lady that talked about the movie in that interview with MTV, that televised interview. And I think her name was Emanuela Salette or something like that. Anyway, she's really pretty, tall French lady. So she's their landlord, and she's also messing with Jerome Benton's character, and his name is Tricky. And so they're messing around, and he ends up, giving the French lady their rent money because he just got it from the older white lady that he was with the night before. So Prince is, of course, a very snazzy dresser. And that's why I really wish that it was in color so you could really see the bright, beautiful colors that he was wearing. Because as we all know, Prince looks good in just about anything he wears. But I really would like to see the colors and how it would pop against his skin and just his body, One of the first things that you see, one of the first scenes after he leaves the white lady's house is, it kind of pans up to his ass and he's, writing another note. And I'm just like, he has the cutest little ass, just like he says in Boys and Girls, had the cutest ass he's ever seen. I know I said that last episode, but it is so true. And you can tell that the pants he had on were like made of some kind of gold, kind of shiny material. And I mean, he just looked so damn good. But anyway, let me get back to the plot of the movie. So they end up finding out about this other rich white lady, this girl named Mary Sharon. Of course, she's younger. She's going to inherit about, I think he said $50 million from her when she turns 21. From her dad. Her dad owns like all of the ships in the French Riviera. So, he's got tons of money. So they end up crashing her 21st birthday party, and she automatically realizes that they on some bullshit. Like they really like trying to, scope her out for her money. And of course, she's not feeling that. But then after a while, when they start, coming around again, she starts falling for Christopher Tracy, Prince's character. And Prince finds out. I did this when I did Purple Rain, y'all. So y'all just gonna have to forgive me. I'll go talk about the kid and then I'll say Prince and then, so I'm doing the same thing. But anyway, okay, so she starts kind of, feeling Christopher Tracy. And Chris finds out that Mary's dad, Isaac Sharon, is actually messing around with the same lady that Christopher Tracy is messing with. And I don't know how, I can't remember exactly, even though I just saw this damn movie, y'all. But I think, she found out Mary, of course, didn't like the fact that, her dad was cheating on her mom. But I don't think she really cared really too much about either parent a whole lot because she knew that her parents were on some bullshit too. So anyway, Prince, there's this one scene, once again, I'm sorry, y'all, Christopher Tracy, where he's going to, I can't remember the lady in white, her name. But he's going over because they like set up a date or whatever. And Isaac Sharon, Mary's dad, is over there. So Chris just leaves the champagne that he brought literally outside, and then he does this little thing where he scrunches his butt up. I was like, put a pillow up on her ass because she liked that, and stroke it one time for me, just like, okay. It was pretty funny. There's a lot of little funny moments in the movie, especially between Prince and Jerome Benton's character, Tricky. And I think they really had a really good comedic timing and a really good rapport with one another. A lot of people think that Morris Day would have done a better job had it been a movie with him in it. But I don't know. I slightly disagree, only because I think now you have to remember that the Morris Day character, as it was, is really Prince. Prince basically gave Morris Day this character, so the character that Morris Day has is basically an interpretation of Prince, so really it's Prince. It's not really Morris Day. It's really Prince. And so when people say, well, Morris Day would have did a better job, possibly, and maybe there is definitely an argument for that. But I do enjoy Prince's comedic timing as well. Like the whole Wreck-A Stowe, that whole thing. So I don't know if y'all know this, but supposedly St. Paul, who was in The Family, the lead singer, one of the co-lead singer of The Family, tells a story on Once Upon a Time in Minneapolis, that wonderful series about Prince that's on YouTube. Tells a story about that he actually got the whole Wreck-A Stowe bit that Prince would use in the movie. When he first met Prince, St. Paul said that Prince did the same thing that he did to Mary in the movie to him. And so I was just like, that is so funny. Like, he did the whole having him say the word Wreck-A Stowe. And just like Mary, St. Paul was like, well, I didn't really get it at first. But then when I kept saying it, and then of course, he fell out, Prince fell out laughing, just like, him and Jerome Benton would do in the movie. And so I was like, so he did that again. And at the time, when I was younger, I really didn't understand why it was so funny. I guess it kind of went over my head. And now, of course, it's just like, it is kind of funny, but also a little corny, not gonna lie. But that was what it was. So, I'm basically like trying to describe the movie, because I know we've all seen the movie, so I really don't want to go too deep on plot points, So, like I said, they end up basically falling in love with each other when they couldn't stand each other at first, Mary Sharon and Christopher Tracy. So they get to this point where they really start falling in love. And Jerome Benton's character, Tricky, he gets kind of jealous because he thinks that, he could do a better job than Christopher Tracy. And so he kind of, toward the end of the movie, he kind of lets it be known, that this was a whole setup to try to get her money. He says, in front of her, okay, well, me and Chris had a whole plan where we were going to split the money and all this. And Mary's looking at Chris like, oh, so do you lie? Like she said, like, are you serious? Like, I thought you really liked me and not for my money, because at first that's what she thought, but, after a while, Chris gained her respect and she really started to love him. And so that was kind of like the turning point in the movie when Tricky just, kind of put Chris on blast. And that, of course, affected their friendship. And, so all that happened. And then, so finally, Christopher Tracy comes back to Mary when Mary is getting ready to leave to go with her parents somewhere. And they're getting on a plane to go somewhere, to leave, I guess. And so he catches her on the tarmac before she leaves and whisks her away. And they go back to this little, I don't know what you call it, like a little cove, kind of like a little island or whatever. And anyway, so of course he ends up being shot because the dad is just like, no, I don't want, like, he never liked Christopher Tracy to begin with. And he also didn't like the fact that Chris knew about, his little affair that he was having with the woman in white. And so he just, and he knew that, Chris was, or assumed that Chris just wanted Mary for, his money. So he even tried to pay him off at one point at the end of the movie. He writes a check and gives it to the lady in white and say, hey, give this to Chris. And the check was for like $100,000. And so Chris takes the check and he writes on it, fuck you. And then he tells the lady in white, tell him it's Chinese. So I thought that was pretty funny. So yeah, but like I said, he does die, of course. And that was kind of a big controversy at the time because there is an alternative version where he lives. And I would have kind of preferred that, but I do kind of understand why. But it was very important to Prince that this character be killed because apparently his management and Warner Brothers kind of wanted, the character to live. But Prince was supposedly very adamant about the character dying. And, Prince had his reasons for that. But I would like to see the alternative where the character lives. He gets shot, of course, not directly, but the father himself didn't do it, but he had one of his men to do it when Chris was coming back to get Mary from their little island that they had been on. And so, yeah, that happens. And of course, she's sad. But at the end of the movie, right before they roll the credits where you see kind of the music video for Mountains, Jerome Benton's character, Tricky, he ends up getting with their French landlord and they go back to Miami. And I guess Mary Sharon ends up buying this whole like apartment complex for him that he's the manager of. I guess just as a going away gift or something. And, of course they play Sometimes It Snows in April and the whole thing is just sad, and that's basically the movie. I really like the movie and I can really appreciate what Prince was trying to do, even if other people didn't, because of course it got panned by the critics. It got like 5 awards for Razzie Awards, as they call them, for the worst movie of the year. Siskel and Ebert at the time thought it was trash. I mean, the critics just basically panned it, and it really didn't make a lot of money either. But like I said, looking back now, I think people have a better respect for it now, because there's a lot of movies that when they came out, that people didn't like, or didn't understand. But now, looking back, 30 plus years, you can kind of understand it better, so sometimes it takes certain movies to have to, get a little older before they can be understood. And I think that's definitely the case for Under the Cherry Moon. So anyway, that's pretty much what I think about the movie. And I know that probably wasn't the best review, but like I said, it is what it is. I love the movie. If you haven't seen it, for whatever reason, please see it. Like I said, I love Prince's comedic timing in it. I love the way he looked. He looked gorgeous as always. And I like Jerome Benton as well. I think they worked very well together. A lot of people talk about the fact that they don't think that Kristen Scott Thomas and Prince had really good chemistry. And I can see why people said that, because the kissing, I didn't get that. Like, he kind of did that fish kissing, as I called it, in Purple Rain with Apollonia too. And I don't know why Prince did that. Like, because I know that he didn't normally, kiss like that, because there have been women that he's dated that said he's an amazing kisser. So I know that he doesn't kiss like that in real life, but I guess he thought that's, how you would have to kiss in the movie. But those kisses were just, cringeworthy, you guys. Like, I mean, like, I'm just like, why is Prince kissing her like that? And I know there were times where Kristen Scott Thomas kind of looked kind of like, oh my God, like he cannot kiss. Like, what is he doing? You know, like she was trying her best to keep up with how Prince was kissing her, but it just, I don't know, it just didn't work out. And it kind of makes me wonder how he really kissed her behind the scenes, because supposedly, y'all ain't heard this from me. Well, yeah, you have heard it from me because I'm about to say it. Supposedly they messed around. But you know, she was one of several that Prince was messing around with. And that kind of leads me to what I'm going to talk about in a minute about the end of the revolution. But Prince was messing with Sheila E., supposedly Kristen Scott Thomas. Now, he was supposed to be pretty much engaged at this point to Susanna Melvion, who was also, not only his fiance, but she was Wendy's twin sister. And of course, she was also a member of the family. And I'm also going to talk about the family here in a minute too. So yeah, he was engaged, messing with Sheila E., possibly messing with Kristen Scott Thomas. And then he also was messing with Devin Vasquez as well. And then, of course, Jill Jones was still around. She was living in New York by this time. And who else? Possibly even Susan Musi. So, I mean, he still was juggling all these women, you know, even though he really loved Susanna. Like I said in the last episode, he just had a problem with just being faithful. Like he could not, like if you literally, at this point in his life, if you put a gun to Prince's head and say, you got to be faithful to one woman, he would die. Like literally, he would be gone. Okay. You could just pull the trigger on his ass. Okay. So, but anyway, so moving on, let me go ahead and talk about how the revolution went ahead and disbanded at this time, and also how the family came about. So let me actually talk about the family first, because that's kind of a shorter topic. So the family came about because, of course, the Time broke up. After Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were fired in 1983, Morris Day and Jesse Johnson and Monte Moyer and Jelly Bean Johnson, of course, stayed on through the end of the Purple Rain movie. But after the movie wrapped, Morris Day was done. You know, he literally left after the last scene, him and his girlfriend, and rode off to wherever. So, and then Jesse Johnson, he stayed on for a little while after the family was created, but then he eventually left to do his own solo projects, and so did Monte Moyer. And Jelly Bean Johnson, he stayed on as the drummer for the longest until the family was kind of disbanded. And the family got disbanded because St. Paul left. And he was, Prince had made him the lead singer. Now, he had been a part of the time after Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, St. Paul was. I can't remember if he played, I think he played the keyboard, I believe. But Prince discovered one day that he could sing. And so he put him and Susanna as the co-lead singers together in the family. So the family was made up of Susanna Melvion, St. Paul, and Jelly Bean Johnson, Jerome Benton, and Eric Leeds. Eric Leeds came on as the saxophone player. And of course, Eric Leeds is the brother of Alan Leeds, which was a Prince's tour manager at the time. So they basically made up the family. And they, like I said, they came about because the Time got, ended. They got disbanded. Everybody went their separate ways. And it was also a way for, some of these people like Jelly Bean Johnson and Jerome Benton. It was a way for them to continue to still get a paycheck, because they didn't leave. They stayed around in the community in Prince's, realm of influence. And so he wanted to keep these people employed. And so he came up with the family. And the family was basically going to be kind of like a jazz kind of band, kind of like, I don't know, I guess he was trying to say, I think he was quoted as saying, Prince was, that he was after that Duran Duran money. So he was kind of looking at the family as being kind of alternative, kind of jazz group, but also, that new wave that was still in the 80s, new wave groups like Duran Duran and Aha and, bands like that were doing these different, these alternative sounds that was really popular in the 80s. Like, he's like, let's get in on that. And so he came up with an album called The Family. And, probably the most well-known song is Nothing Compares to You. And if you've never heard The Family's version, they have an awesome version. Their version is probably my second favorite after Prince's version. I really didn't care for Sinead O'Connor's version. I know a lot of people love her version. And when I first heard it, I did like it. But after I heard the version that he did with Rosie Gaines, I love. Now, that was my favorite one until they came out with Prince's version. And then I really liked Prince's version more than I liked the version that he did with Rosie Gaines. So yeah, now the Family one is probably like my third favorite, because Rosie Gaines is my second and then Prince is my first. And then Sinead O'Connor. And I know other people have also, what's his name? Another guy, he died, O'Connell. I can't remember what his first name was, but I know he also did a cover that's supposed to be really good. But anyway, that's their most famous. But they also had The Screams of Passion, which is a really good song. And then High Fashion was another song that was on that album. So check out The Family's album. It's pretty decent. It's also on YouTube if you want to check it out. But that's basically The Family. And Susanna, which was Prince's, fiance at the time, that was also another way for them to, also spend time together and collaborate. Because for Prince, it was really important for him to have women that were musically inclined. Because that's how he communicated. He communicated through his music. And so if he had a woman that wasn't musically inclined, they normally wasn't around for very long. And I think that was the case with, women like Devin Vasquez and Kim Basinger and, people like that, women like that just, music wasn't really their thing. So they didn't really stay around very long. But for the women like Sheila E. and Jill Jones, and women like that who were musically inclined, Prince loved to collaborate. So it wasn't just about just a sex thing or just, a romantic relationship thing. He really liked to collaborate with these women as well. So be that as it may. So moving on. So the seeds of the end for the revolution actually started at the end of the Purple Rain tour. And the reason why I say that is because up until that point, the Purple Rain tour was like the biggest tour that Prince had ever done in his career. And so likewise, you would think that, he would try to really pay the revolution what they were worth, because it was them that kind of helped Prince get to this, a pinnacle of success. But according to Mark Brown in his book, My Life in the Purple Kingdom, at least he said that he was paid only $15,000 for the Purple Rain tour. And that was like a slap in the face. So I don't know how much Lisa and Wendy got paid, and Bobby Z and Matt Fink. I don't know exactly, what their paychecks were. But Mark said his was $15,000. And he thought that was a slap in the face, because there were other artists that were paying their bands more. Like supposedly, and in his book, Brown Mark says that Michael Jackson was paying his band members $1 million a piece for the Victory tour. And so, after that, Brown Mark he was incensed. He said the same day he got his check, he said he found Prince, and Prince was just like, hey, he was one of Prince was hands on with everything but the money and the business aspect of his career. Now, if it has something to do with music, yeah, you could go to Prince. But if it had something to do with any kind of business, especially when it came to how his band members or how his people in general were getting paid, he would be like, hey, you need to talk to the manager. You need to talk to my manager about that, or my management team. I don't have anything to do with that. And so that's basically what he told Brown Mark. And so that wasn't good enough for Brown Mark, because, yeah, you got people, but this is your money. You determine how much these people get paid, or at least that was Brown Mark's thinking. But in a way, Prince might be right. Look, I don't deal with that. I pay accountants to tell me, okay, this is how much money needs to be allotted to the band. This is how much money needs to go toward the tour, and so on and so on, because that's not his expertise. His expertise is dealing with the music. So in a way, that might be the case. Prince might not know exactly how much he's supposed to be paying or how much they're getting paid, because he doesn't pay attention to that. He's got other people that do that for him. So he may have honestly gave Brown Mark an honest assessment. But be that as it may, it wasn't enough money. And, they were not happy. Lisa and Wendy in particular were not happy because they really felt like Prince was taking a lot of their creative ideas and not giving them enough credit. Like my last episode, I talked about how on Mountains, for example, how they did all of the music on that song, but Prince took sole credit for it. And that was wrong. He did do the lyrics, but they were the ones who composed the music. And they really didn't get credit for that. And the situation with Kiss with Brown Mark, same situation. Him and David Z pretty much did a lot of that music for Kiss, and they didn't get credit for it. After Brown Mark was told by Prince, according to him, that he would get something for it. Then him and Maserati and David Z. Now, David Z, he put down as a producer of the song, co-producer, but that was it. And I just thought that, that was kind of, not right of Prince. But like I said, we really don't know on Prince's end what was going on. So we can only, we were only hearing one side of the story now, especially now that Prince isn't with us to defend himself. So I'm really not one of those people that are just going to be like, oh, Prince did all these people wrong. Yeah, he did to a certain extent. But like I said, we don't know Prince's side of that story. So we can't really speculate too much on why things happened the way they did. We could if he was still alive and able to answer for himself. But since he can't, we can't. So it is what it is. So moving on. So after that whole debacle with not getting paid what they thought they were owed, things just started going downhill from that point on. So things just weren't adding up, as far as with the money. And then here comes the counter revolution, as it's referred to. So during the parade tour, he added on some extra people. He added Greg Brooks and Wally Sanford, which used to be his bodyguards, but now he had them on the stage dancing along with Jerome Benton. So he had 3 new male dancers, and then he brought in Eric Leeds on saxophone and Alana Bliss on trumpet. And let me see who else. I think those were it, but it might have been like some other, like he had like the Hornheads. I think they were there, but the Hornheads were people that kind of came in and out. So it was like it wasn't a set group of people. So, but the Hornheads were also around at this time as well. So all these new people were basically on stage. And it really kind of pissed Wendy off in particular because she was just like, because the revolution was such like a family to her. And she didn't appreciate the fact that there was all these people on stage. And Brown Mark even said that, he was kind of pushed further and further to the back. And what really pissed Wendy off is when there were times where Prince would, kind of signal her to lay out, meaning don't play. And he would instead make Eric Leeds do a solo on his saxophone. And so Wendy was like, okay, what the hell is going on? And so this started, like I said, during the early concerts of the parade tour is when all this was going on. And, so she was thinking, okay, is he pissed at us? Because at some point after the end of the Purple Rain tour, they approached Prince about a raise. And according to Wendy, it really pissed Prince off. And I don't know exactly, because she didn't really go into detail exactly, what he said, but it was obvious that he was very mad that Wendy and Lisa came to him about wanting a raise. And so by the time the parade tour got started and the counter revolution got started and you had all these extra people on stage, and half of them really didn't have, in Wendy's mind, any musical talent other than, of course, Eric Leeds and Alana Bliss. Of course, they were musicians, but she didn't appreciate Wally Sanford, rest in peace. He recently died. And Greg Brooks and Jerome Benton. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that she loved Jerome Benton, but she really didn't understand why these 3 men in particular were being invited to become dancers. Like, she just didn't understand that. But according to, I don't know if it was Wally or if it was Greg Brooks that said this on one of the episodes for the Once Upon a Time in Minneapolis series, that supposedly, like I said, I don't know how true this is, but supposedly Prince was getting some kind of flack from the NAACP about the fact that he didn't have black people in his band, supposedly. And I mean, the Revolution, there were only 2 black people, him and Brown Mark. Everybody else was white. And so supposedly he told, I think, either Greg Brooks or Wally Sanford, that I don't know if it was a representative of the NAACP, the national chapter or whatever, or one of the chapters, that supposedly approached Prince and was like, hey, you're supposed to be a black musician. You're not really supporting black musicianship or something. I don't know what they said. So supposedly that's why they were kind of added to the group. But like I said, I don't know how true that is, but there you have it. But anyway, Wendy wasn't having it, and Lisa wasn't either. But Wendy was also kind of, having these issues with Prince about her sister and the fact that he was, being unfaithful to her sister, hurting her sister's, feelings. And so for Wendy, she had professional and personal issues with Prince. And, Lisa, of course, being Wendy's girlfriend at the time, she's having to, deal with that from Wendy's end, trying to support Wendy, but also being, of course, a part of the band. And, Lisa having her own issues as well. And just like with Bobby Z and Matt, the same thing. They had their issues with Prince as well. And so it was just really a matter of, it was meant to happen, at some point, so toward, while the parade tour was going on, Wendy and Lisa had kind of already made up their mind that they were going to be done, so they kind of were already on their way out the door. Matter of fact, they were on their way out the door before the parade tour even started, when they were still doing the hit and run shows. Before the tour went overseas. Like, matter of fact, when they were done with all the hit and run concerts that they did before the start of the European leg of the tour, they were going to be done. But it was Bobby Z, that kind of talked them and Alan Leeds kind of talked to Wendy and Lisa, was like, hey, you guys can't leave yet. We're finna get ready to start the European leg of this tour. We need you guys. So you just can't leave like that. And so they were like, okay, well, we're going to do this. But then after this, some shit's got to shake. Some got to change. So with that, being said, it was already kind of set up for when, the European tour was over, that the Revolution was probably going to be over. And they knew the last night of the tour, which was in Yamaha, Japan on September 9th, 1986. And if you watch the reels, they have a series called Breaking of the Band, and they have the Revolution as one of their series, one of their shows in the series. And so it talks about, and it actually shows footage, and also in the Once Upon a Time in Minneapolis YouTube series also shows footage in this last concert of Prince breaking his guitars. His White Cloud guitar, and I think another guitar that he broke at the end when they finished Purple Rain, and which was the last song. And you could tell that he was upset, visibly upset. And after they witnessed that, Wendy and Lisa were both like, yeah, it's over. It's over. And matter of fact, Wendy said she kind of looked over at Bobby Z, and Bobby was like, yeah, he's done. And so sure enough, after that last show, maybe like that next week when they all came back to the States, Prince met with Wendy and Lisa and pretty much told them that he was going in a different direction. And the way he told them was that, like, look, I can't have you guys out there in crotchless underwear and nippleless bras or something like that. And I'm just like, Prince, why did you have to say all that? And because Lisa and Wendy were both like, no, we're not dressing like that. But they both knew that it was bullshit, that he was just saying that because he was trying to, make up some kind of lame excuse of why he had to let them go. But he basically fired them, and he basically fired Bobby Z over the phone. But he did allow Matt Fink to stay. And Matt Fink would actually stay, Dr. Fink, as he is known, he would stay all the way up until 1990. So he actually became a part of the MPG for a little while, the first the first kind of NPG, New Power Generation, which would be the band after the revolution. And so that's just basically what happened. He fired them and was just like, hey, I'm going in a different direction. I love you guys, but I just don't think that I can take you guys for where I'm going. And Wendy and Lisa said they respected that at the time, but I think they were still a little shocked because they were thinking that, well, maybe this is just like a little rough patch and, maybe things will get better. But, because Lisa even said that she was kind of in denial about the whole situation. She was just like, nah, because Wendy was thinking they were going to get fired, like probably as soon as, the tour ended, or maybe even some point during the tour, like, because this was a tour where Prince fined Wendy for drinking a beer. Like they were at a hotel and Wendy happened to be coming out of the room and she had a beer in her hand and Prince saw it and fined her. And I mean, it pissed her off because it would have pissed me off too. Like, are you serious? Like, I can't drink a beer, but Prince was like that. He was very like no alcohol, no drugs, he was on that. And so he fined her for the beer. And, Wendy was just like incensed about it. And so, like I said, the writings were on the wall after the Purple Rain tour and how they were, not paid what they were worth. It was just a matter of time before things were going to go that way, unfortunately. And then when he brought in Alana Bliss and Eric Leeds and Greg Brooks and Wally Sanford, all these other people that, it wasn't the revolution anymore. Like I said, it was the counter revolution. So be that as it may, he did, I think, experience a little bit of a melancholy after he let the revolution go or get disbanded. And I think that's what brought about that, and his breakup with Susanna, I think, were the reasons why he would end up doing the Black Album. It started off as being the funk album, but it turned into the Black Album. And he would later, say that it was like, an evil album, but I didn't see anything really evil about it personally. But when I get to my review of it, you'll see what I mean. But so Prince went to kind of a dark place after the revolution disbanded and him and Susanna broke up. And I think this was the period where he, despite that, though, he was still very much prolific in his writing at this time, because he would actually end up writing like 3 albums worth of material. But Warner Brothers was like, no, we can't take this much material. So what he ended up doing was Sign of the Times, which I think is probably the height of his creativity and probably the best album, in my opinion, in his discography. So despite all of the turmoil that was going on in his life, both professionally and personally, he would still come out at the end of all this with a masterpiece album, which I will be talking about. But before I get to Sign of the Times, I am going to be doing a book review of The Beautiful Ones, and I might even get in another interview before I do that. So we're going to see, though. But I'm going to end the episode with that. So you guys, once again, thank you so much for tuning into my podcast. And with that being said, y'all have a wonderful night. May you live to see the dawn, and peace out. Bye.